All right, the Hangout is on air. Welcome everyone to our project call. My name's Abby. I'm lead developer for the Mozilla Science Lab. And this month, our MC will be Brian Bott. He's at Sage Bionetworks. And can you introduce yourself and the call?
Absolutely. So I'm Brian Bott. I'm a principal scientist and community manager at Sage Bionetworks. We're a nonprofit in Seattle, Washington at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center. Happy to be joining the call.
Awesome. So Brian, do you want to take us through the agenda?
Absolutely. So today we are going to be going through the Friends of Mozilla, so new contributors to projects. It looks like Rob Peters, if Rob is on the call, has been updating some stuff for Paper Badger, updating one of the libraries to Simple OAuth 2. And Sugnaya making a new module to visualize reactions called Chemix Visualize. Sounds interesting. So, anybody on the call have any other updates or friends of Mozilla Science who have been contributing to a variety of projects? All right.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. That was huge, Rob. Thank you. It fixed a lot of our bugs.
Awesome. Very cool. And today we're going to have some guest speakers from 18F, Aiden and Melody, who are on the call. But I think first we're going to go through project updates. Is that right, Abby?
Oh, no, we can go straight to Aiden and Melody.
All right.
Yeah,
cool.
Sorry.
So, no, quite all right. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Aidan Feldman and Melody Kramer from 18F. 18F is a really, really interesting project dealing with open source and open government. So take it away, guys.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melody, and Aiden is to my left in the Google Hangout.
Hello.
First, we should say what 18F is. So 18F is kind of like consultants within the federal government. So agencies are our clients, and we work on open source projects to help federal agencies with tech stuff. So that could be anything from getting new websites up and running to helping them get into the cloud to helping improve content. We've worked on the beta FEC website, the Federal Election Commission. We've worked on Every Kid in a Park, which was the Interior Department's way to get more kids into national parks. We've worked on a variety of different infrastructure projects. And today, Aiden and I are going to tell you about our work in the open source community. Aiden, would you like to talk a little bit about our work and our open source policy and the way that we think about open source?
Absolutely. So, yeah, as Melody mentioned, we're a team in the federal government. So we're doing work for these various agencies, and not only solving the sort of technical problems of okay, how do we most easily build and deploy to meet this certain need, be it a website or an open data portal or an API or whatever it might be. But there's a lot of culture change that goes into that. So as we're sort of building these various projects, and we act a lot like an internal consultant or a development shop. As we're doing these things, we try and think about how to make our work better spreadable, right? How can we take what we build for one agency for one particular use case and sort of draw the learnings from that out into more reusable pieces? So have a bullet in the Etherpad around open source engagement. So we have a lot of the things we build are applications, right? Of this is the website for the FEC. A project like that is not going to have a ton of reuse value, right? It's going to be very, very useful for that agency that we're building it for, but unless you're trying to create another FEC, that application as it is not going to be that reusable. So when we go into projects and we have this working group that thinks a lot about how to increase our open source engagement, we sort of think about bucketing our our projects in a few ways. So there are these applications that are very much tailored to a specific use case, but then what are the sort of pieces that we can pull out of there that do become more reusable? So for example, on the FEC website, there's a very rich calendar sort of page, and it allows like filtering and viewing details and all these different things that are very useful outside of the context of the FEC. But right now that code might be sort of baked into the code for that particular website, or having a glossary, right? Something where you can click on terms on the page, or type in a search bar and get definitions of terms relevant to that agency. Well, a glossary is very useful in all sorts of contexts, not just government websites, but across many government websites at the very least. So, how can we sort of, how can we help these teams, right, to sort of identify and break out these sort of reusable pieces, and then once we've found those reusable pieces, how do we increase engagement around them and get people outside to use them?
Oh, I'm sorry to jump on you, and how do we surface them, which I think is a problem or just something to think about for any kind of open source project, no matter if you're working in government or science or journalism or whatever the sector may be. You have projects that you want people to work on, and you have components that are useful for people. And how do you tag or showcase those projects? How do you then surface those projects? How do you indicate how you're looking for help? And how do you then reward or acknowledge contributors so that they're more likely to return? We've decided to make our New Year's resolution as an organization improving our open source stuff, so making it more wow for contributors, making it easier to surface our projects. Right now we have over 400 repos in our GitHub. It's extremely difficult to say, like, these are 5 projects that new people should really start on, because if you're new to the open source world, like, these projects make the most sense for you. So we're trying to tag them and surface them and just indicate to people that they should start there. One way we're doing that is we have a weekly newsletter that we write that you can sign up for on our website. Aiden, could you put the link in there in case anybody wants to sign up?
Yep.
But every single newsletter for the past few weeks, we've been putting in 2 issues and saying to people, this is exactly what we're looking for. This is who we're looking for that can help with this. This is the problem that you would help us solve. And we're almost writing like little stories around each of these help wanted issues within GitHub. So I'm on the outreach team, and I constantly think about ways to kind of shape the story around the more technical things that we're doing, because a lot of the help that we need isn't necessarily technical. It's things like documentation. We're looking for users who can test something. That's helping. And then we're thinking about, like, how do we measure that? If somebody helps us by testing something that we've created, they're helping an open source project, but that's not measured in pull requests or forks or stars or something that could be measurable on GitHub. So what are ways that we could measure somebody who's saying to us on Twitter, hey, I noticed this bug, or hey, this is happening to me? I would love to think of them. I do think of them as an open source contributor, but I'm not sure that they're in the ecosystem of the way that we currently do our metrics.
So I'm realizing that we sort of jumped into what we're working on and the sorts of things we're thinking about. Maybe it'd be useful to take a step back and talk about, like, why open source engagement is important, and why we put so much sort of time and effort into this. So for the government, as we said, we're building a lot of applications for specific agencies, and meeting those specific needs. So one reason that open source is important to 18F, and I think the rest of government and everywhere else, is reach, right? If we can build the FEC website, and then some city agency comes along and says, oh, I really like the design of this website, and I really want a lot of those features. They can start with a fork of that code and be up and running in very little time, as opposed to having to kind of build these things from scratch. So I think at the very least, having this code open allows other agencies, companies, individuals, etc., to kind of have a head start and not have to reinvent the wheel over and over. Along with that is very permissive licensing. So, or actually the absence of licensing. So everything that we build is in the public domain. So there actually is no copyright protection to anything that 18F or the federal government builds. So, another reason for open source. Go ahead, Melody.
I was just going to say one of the best examples of that was we created an analytics dashboard, analytics.usa.gov, so you can see how many people are on a government website on a .gov domain. And the city of Philadelphia has adapted it. A department within the state of Tennessee has adapted it. The city of Boulder, Colorado has adapted it. We've heard from other states who are interested in using that code. And then what we've started to do is we've started to interview the people within those cities and states who are adapting the code and ask them for their advice in what they would recommend to other people who would like to adapt our code. So people are not hearing from us, they're hearing from the first wave of people who have adapted it, and I think they're more likely to then adapt the code themselves or to figure out that the code is useful if their peers have also adapted it.
Very cool. And speaking of that, sort of taking a step back and thinking about the open source, why you do open source and how you spread that. I noticed there was a link on the Etherpad to your open source policy. I was curious if you guys could speak a little bit to how you develop that and how you sort of expect people in the community to use that as they're stepping into the various projects, the 400 or so repos that you guys have on GitHub.
Yeah. So the open source policy, which is linked, is something that was I think developed before either of us joined 18F. But it is literally a fork of the open source policy from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And I think when you have a large group like this that is taking on new projects all the time, it helps to sort of have a baseline, especially because everything we build for an external agency or an external client or partner requires a contract. So it's a lot easier if we can have sort of templates for these contracts and say, like, basically here are our rules. Here are the things that we're going to do for every single project. And one of those things is that the project is going to be open source. So by writing this down, we don't have to sort of negotiate with every single agency that we're working with. We say, this is how we work, and we have the benefit of having more agencies that want to work with us than we have the capacity to work on. So, yeah, having that in place, sort of puts out to the world of, like, this is how we do things. This is why we do it this way, and
so this is how you can trust us, because you can kind of see what's under the hood. So it's a very easy way to build trust with your community and say to your community, this is exactly what we're up to. You can see exactly what we're doing. And that extends to things beyond our code. I have always kind of surfaced what I'm working on through Twitter and through newsletters and through other means because I like bouncing off of the public. I always think that it's extremely useful to kind of reveal what you're doing midstream, whether you're a coder or a writer or a designer or a scientist, whatever your scope may be. And people are more invested in the outcome of the project when they can see the project midstream.
I think that's very true. I certainly have seen that in my experience as well. I just remind everybody, if you have questions or comments, please post them to the Etherpad. Todd Robbins had a couple of interesting notes as you were talking about a little bit earlier about how to recognize people who aren't necessarily writing code. He suggested maybe open badges for volunteer recognition, or maybe even featuring some of those people on the project readme.markdown. So I know Mozilla Science Labs has suggested something I think called a human.txt that they include in some of their repos as well, where you can sort of provide additional information about people who are contributing in maybe unconventional ways, or at least ways that aren't necessarily tracked through GitHub. So good suggestion, Todd Robbins.
I should also say that we have an open source style guide that I've put in the document as well, and that's just a way for people at 18F and also anybody who is interested in open source but might not know where to get started. It says, like, this is the way that we set up a README, this is the way that you should write an issue if you're asking for help, and it kind of standardizes all of the parts of our repo so that they all kind of feel the same, but it becomes much easier for someone to contribute. I really like the idea of a humans.txt file. Aiden, do you want to talk a little bit about concerns about open source in large institutions, like security, looking bad when something goes wrong? How do you talk people into it when they might not be on board immediately?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that comes up at sort of all sorts of different organizations, especially very large bureaucratic ones, of concerns around open source. So the sort of common ones that are heard are security. So if my code is open, then people can see how they can hack me, right? Or won't that mean that my data can be stolen? Or won't that mean other people can break my applications? So I think there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt around this in particular, where there have actually been a couple of really important milestones in terms of open source and government specifically. So first of all, there's a standards body called the National Institute of Standards and Technology that puts out sort of requirements for applications or sort of systems in use in the government. And one particular, there's another sort of memo from the Department of Defense, and both are sort of addressing this issue, with the Department of Defense saying that by having code in the open, it means that, especially for popular projects, that means that code is being reviewed by many people, not just those, sitting within a single company. And having that that much visibility and that many people from different backgrounds kind of contributing and improving, you actually have better security than you would with, or it's very possible or likely to have better security than if you were in a sort of proprietary situation, because then you have a very fixed set of people looking at that code, maybe not outside eyes, coming at it with a different mindset. So yeah, there's that misunderstanding about the security of code in general, and then there's misunderstandings around, oh, if my code is public, doesn't that mean my data is public? And sort of detaching those ideas of, you can have code that operates on sensitive information like social security numbers or whatever. That doesn't mean that data has to live public. Those are two very separate things.
I just want to jump on something you said, because I think this would help people who work at universities. Through putting our stuff online, people who think like us at other federal agencies are able to see the kind of work we do and start to surface that within their own agencies, and we're kind of able to create these we're able to break down silos in the federal government and create these collaborative working groups of people who kind of think like this because they're able to see our code and it is public, which I think is extremely useful. And I think in universities it's the same thing for across departments. It's often very hard to work across departments. You're often dealing with a lot of bureaucracy and layers, and this is a way to kind of find people who think like you and other. It's kind of like a trail of people. Just these are like little breadcrumbs to kind of find the people who are doing these things.
Yeah, and I mean, there's things that that visibility is useful within an organization. I mean, to find 18F projects, I've started Googling it. I search like 18F glossary.
Yeah, me too.
Because it's all public, and so I don't have to like find that right person that would know about that thing, right? All these repositories are public, all the sites are public, etc. So, not like within 18F. I mean, we're at 165-ish people. I mean, when you get to that size, it starts to matter. At a university scale, or across federal government scale, right, which is hundreds of thousands of people, there's no way that you can have that sort of visibility. So by putting things in the pub, when you're sharing at that sort of scale, it's basically public. So why not just go all the way and therefore make it more discoverable by using tools that crawl public information like Google.
Yeah, that's great. And getting to that, I think we had a couple other questions come in, and in fact, Joey is on the Google Hangout, so maybe I'll let him chime in himself here and ask his question or make a comment. Joey?
Yeah. Hello. Hi. So I just a comment on how to get contributors to your projects, which I think like a glossary is something that is generic and like basically lots of people can use. So in a way, how do you get people to like enhance them or build on them? And just a few suggestions, maybe like running a civic hackathon, like kind of maybe targeting people at universities or students. There's like a lot of these like Hack Reactor or like hacking boot camps or whatever these things are, and a lot of them are looking for projects that are like meaningful, that like get people engaged with stuff that's happening out there. And so maybe pitching like what you're up to those kinds of groups where it's like really rapid fire, like people trying to get projects out there, and that could be kind of cool. And I find that's also really helpful always to have, or that it is helpful to have like a hello video that's like welcoming and like, what are you about? Like, 3 minutes, like here's your pitch, and then that you can like also distribute really quickly. People love reading, but people like watching videos a lot more. Can you
embed a video in a README? Because that would be awesome. Like, hey, here's what we're all about. Like, here's what this project is.
I wonder if you,
cool.
because it's just like an iframe. Yeah, so that could be like a nice thing. So yeah, just a few hints maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an interesting sort of category of, sort of like buckets of contributors, as I say it, of, people that want to use this thing to solve their problem, right? So like the glossary, someone else at an agency is like, I need a glossary, where can I find a glossary? And they come across one of ours. And then, they may become contributors through finding a bug or needing an additional feature or something like that. What you were talking about is, I think, a really interesting sort of less explored area of people that just want experience. Like, they don't really care what they work on. They just want it to be impactful, and a lot of people going through boot camps, learning to code, etc. Students, are in this bucket of like, well, they can build a throwaway project, something that they turn in and then never touch again, or they can contribute to something that is meaningful and can be used by lots of people. So yeah, have it. I think we've tried various things. Having like in-person workshops. We've talked to a boot camp in the past about. Maybe like this is part of their final project. They contribute to 18F projects. Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there, and something we should definitely spend more time on.
I just dropped a link in the Etherpad. I did a fellowship at Harvard last spring where I left 18F for a little bit and researched this very topic. So I'm putting the research that I did in there in case it's helpful. It's how do you reach out to students to work on different kinds of projects that might help your organization, where they're receiving something in that's not monetarily given in response.
Very cool. Maybe as we're starting to wrap this up, it looks like you have some information about what you're hoping to improve this coming year. Maybe we can start looking forward to, what is on the horizon for 18F and where the community might be able to help.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of things that we've listed as things that we're working on this year in terms of improving stuff within open source. We're trying to make it really easy to surface and find meaningful projects, which means categorizing projects in different ways and saying who is the audience, what kinds of different audiences visit our site, and how can we cater to them. We're asking for help in not just code. A lot of the times when we ask for help in issues, it's generally code focused, so we're trying to spread the love around people who can document, or people who can do outreach or user testing. We think that those are really important. We're thinking about different metrics that we can use and how to measure them, and anything we think about we'll obviously make public. And before we leave, we should just say that we're also experimenting with this micro-purchase platform, which is the idea that you can pay people small amounts to help with open source projects. And so we're running those on micropurchase.18f.gov. People bid on different projects. They're micro tasks, so the most that they can get paid is $3,500, and then they bid down. And we're also putting everything that we learn up on our blog. So that's a way to get people involved. And it's also a way to get small businesses or small contracts involved with the federal government on a different scale.
That's super interesting. And I'm curious if you have had, have you done much with micro purchasing yet, or is that something that's really new?
It's really new. We've run a couple rounds, and every round we've learned something. The first round, somebody bid it immediately down to $1. So it started at $3,500. Somebody came in and bid $1. And then there was a lot of pushback from like the hacker news community on what it means when somebody's bidding on government contracts for $1. So we're, adjusting things slowly in the back end, trying to figure out ways to ensure that nobody is violating any kind of rules, running tests, continually running bids. But we've been very pleased with the number of people bidding and the different kinds of people bidding. It's not just all people who live in Washington. It's not just all guys. So far, so good. But as we learn more, we haven't run enough, I think, where we could make any grandstanding, like, this is how this works type thing. But as we learn, we're just publishing and slowly iterating on that.
Someone pointed out with that bid going down to $1 that may be the first time there's ever been a complaint of the government not paying enough for something. So yeah, but I mean, that was just the first time, and there was a lot of news around it. But since then, there's been more reasonable prices for these specific tasks. So more to come.
That's awesome. I will be watching that closely. I'm curious how that works out for you guys. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Abby, do you see anything else on coming through on the Etherpad?
There's a few things. We can probably answer those in line or have those discussions in line while we move on. It's probably the best. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank our speakers. It was great learning about a little bit more about 18F. I know Caitlin has been singing your praises, and I've been very excited to learn more about it. So thank you, Aiden and Melody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so heading on in the agenda, we have a few project updates. Paper Badger. Abby, you want to take it away on that one?
Yeah, sure. So also, I just want to see, I know there are a few projects on here, and some of the people might want to actually talk with their call, and they might not be in the Google Hangout. So if they're here, just say hi in the chat, and we'll see if we can swap people out so you can share an update on your project while I'm doing mine. But yes, so these are all Collaborate projects. So these are open source projects for science we have on our Mozilla Science Collaborate platform. And the first project is mine with Paper Badger. So this started as contributorship badges for science. So it's really trying to give credit to authors for their work on academic papers. So sometimes you have a paper with 50 authors and you don't know who did what. This way you can have a badge for doing the analysis or having concept. So I'm going to share my screen. We'll see how this works. We haven't really done too much screen sharing yet on here. Share. Okay, cool. So on badges.mozillaScience.org, it's not the prettiest site, but this is where people can go to really get any of these badges. And we can browse all the badges issued, all the funding badges we have here. And then it goes to, you can go to that paper. Oh, this is JSON, so I forgot what I was doing. But so we have a partnership with both GigaScience and Ubiquity Press. And on the papers that have badges, you can actually go and click and see all the badges for that paper. So it's a nice way to sort of give more transparency to what people did on a paper. So, and we're also applying for GSOC together with Mozilla for this summer. So I put together that application, something that's happened this past month. But to get involved, there's quite a few good first bugs. I'll go to our roadmap. It's loading. Here we are. Roadmap. It's one of our issues. So there's some good first bugs to jump in, or you can look for design issues, writing code. But some things you can jump in right now. Testing we really need help with. And if you have a better way to display badges, especially for if you're an author and you have a personal website and you want to display all your badges, we don't have a really good widget to do that. So if you want to think of new ways to display it, that might be a good place to jump in. And an easy one to jump in, easier one, might be adding Redis to our Docker setup. So we added Redis, but it's not in Docker yet. So our Docker setup doesn't work right now. So that might be a fun thing if you want to jump in and help us out. So that's where we are with Paper Badger. And I think I saw Bruno say something about being online. Was I imagining that, Brian?
So I asked if he wanted to be able to hop on. He said it's read-only today. Joey hopped off, so there's a free spot. So Bruno, if you're listening and can hop onto the Google Hangout linked onto the top, that would be great. But maybe while we're waiting for Bruno, we can go on to Chemix Lab.
I think that's Nifras. I think he was also watching and leaving comments on the side before.
Okay.
I'll do Code Meta. We're going to go back and forth. So Code Meta is another project that I've done a little bit of work with. I'll share my screen again. Oh, Bruno says his wife is sleeping. That's what, okay. That's a good reason not to join, Bruno. But with Code Meta, so they're actually looking at metadata standards for code, because right now there's a lot of different places where code is stored. Like scientific software is often stored in Figshare, also Zenodo, also GitHub. But there's no good way to sort of look at the metadata across them. So Code Meta is making this crosswalk. Let's see. I didn't make the site. I don't know what's on here. But this crosswalk that sort of maps the metadata that you have in Zenodo and Figshare and GitHub. That way, and also Data One is, one of them. And that way you could feasibly search across all of them. Oh, Max joined! Sorry, I got distracted. Hey, Max. Oh, can you mute, Max, actually? I'm echoing a bit.
Sorry.
They're also planning a meetup. I think it's a workshop. Yeah, April 15 to 17. I'll be there. So if you care about the future of software metadata, you can apply. There's a Google, I forgot what it's called, a Google form. So you can apply to come. It's a pretty small workshop, but we'll actually be hammering out this crosswalk so that they can start building things that will let you search across the different places where software is stored. So places where you can jump in, applying there, contributing to the crosswalk mappings in GitHub. Oh, that's not a good link. Oh, it's because of the bracket. So their crosswalk right now is here in, this is just explaining the crosswalk. Here it is, CSV. So you see there's the different, this is Zenodo, this is Figshare, Software Discovery Index, and then it just maps the different fields they have to a specific concept. So this is really important for the future of even just getting credit for your software and just making it more discoverable, making scientific software more discoverable. So if you're interested, help them out. And it's a fun group. So back to you, Brian.
Very cool. So we have Chemix Lab on the line now.
Oh no, so Max is he's at the bottom actually. Gene Mania.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll jump down to Gene Mania then while Max is on. Max, you want to take it away? Project update.
Sure. I think I've got that unmuted now. Yeah. So Gene Mania is it's an app for gene function prediction. So you can give it a gene like P53, And we'll give you, based on a bunch of data and the Gene Mania algorithm, a number of genes that are likely related to the gene or genes that you inputted. Gene Mania currently has a new beta version, and we've put that out. There's a link here on the Etherpad. What we're looking for is your thoughts and feedback. What are the things that you like about it? What are the things you don't like about it? Is there anything that you find confusing about it? Are there any things that you would like to see in it? So we'd really like to get your feedback on it, and we're going to be pushing it out, the final version, to production relatively shortly. So we'd really appreciate your feedback, and we're really excited to be putting it out.
Great, thank you so much for the update. It sounds like an interesting project.
Great, thanks for your time.
Absolutely. So Chemics Lab, I don't think they're on. Is that correct, Abby?
No, Nifras is there. He just joined.
Awesome.
So he is on. Nifras, you're muted, so if you could unmute.
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay. Chemics, actually, we are releasing our first release version. Chemics Lab Visual Index.html. You can see the link 212. There we release a simple visualization reactions from our third year guys who are the new contributors to Chemics. Suganya, she cannot enroll to this link. Hope she will join. And the 3 or 4 members are doing their good job on the Chemics, and the documentations also releases. That's all about Chemics update. Hope we will release our chemical search engine using some NLP processing I'm doing now. Let's hope it will be in future. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Nifras. Very cool. So DynaML is the next one. Anybody from DynaML on?
I don't think so. I think you'll have to read that one out loud. Also, there might be a reboot of Etherpad. That's okay.
Yeah, in 5 minutes.
Oh no. Okay.
It looks like, so for DynaML, it looks like they have some new additions, some Gaussian processes, neural networks, neural committee models, and support for least squares support vector machines, SVM. So very cool. And they have a new and improved project homepage and new wiki. So if anybody's interested in helping to improve the documentation or in designing a release cycle through Maven, it looks like they're asking for a little bit of help there. So feel free to reach out. There are a couple of links in the Etherpad. Abby, do you want to take collector here?
Sure, yeah. I know Mikey can't join us, but he was online last month. I remember his project. I don't work on this one. Oh, wait, are you on?
So I work with Mikey, and I'm filling in for him today.
Awesome.
Great.
Okay.
Welcome, Tyson.
Yeah, good to be here. I'm sort of helping Mikey for the last couple months, and we actually just finished sort of making the last big feature we wanted for the overhaul of the collector that we were working on. So the collector is designed for running psychology experiments online, and specifically for helping non-programmers deal with this, because learning the programming for something like E' or just PHP straightforwardly can take a while. So we've actually sort of finished the new version, and we're getting ready to start sending it to other labs. And so far, the tests seem to be going well. Not too many bugs, and things have been seeming to go smoothly. And we've got a couple of assistants that are working on documentation, so that should also take off. But right now, we actually don't really have any documentation at all. So that's sort of like the big goal moving forward, is that, as well as a couple other bonus features on the side. So that's what we're going to be working on. But for what we have now, it looks good, and we're sort of excited to start actually using this to run some experiments.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on the major release, and we'll look forward to seeing once some of the documentation is ready, gathering some people to give it a whirl. Are you specifically looking for others to help write the documentation, or?
So, I mean, that would be helpful. Mikey actually put in the dev branch a Word doc for how to fork and make some documentation. So if people wanted to jump in, they could. But we do have a couple of assistants that we've sort of walked through the steps of how to actually run the collector, and hopefully that knowledge, combined with the fact that they're newcomers themselves, will help them write documentation that's appropriate for other newcomers. Because Mikey and I didn't want to give too much of the documentation ourselves because we sort of know it all too well, so it's hard for us to see what's confusing and what's not confusing. So yeah, it's actually helpful for us to have newcomers who can get confused and explain to us what's confusing. So we're actually sort of relying on newcomers doing the documentation. That's why we've trained a couple of assistants to help with that.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah, if you'd provide a link in the Etherpad to that branch that has some of that instructions, that would be perfect, and people know where to find it.
I will do that.
Cool. Thank you.
Brian, can we jump back up to because we skipped Bio Uno at the beginning with Bruno, so
Yes.
just to make sure we don't forget him.
Absolutely. And so Bruno wasn't able to get on, but Bio Uno is sort of focused on best practices in software engineering for life sciences, and it looks like they released Active Choices 1.4, which is a plugin, and you can check it out at biouno.org. And I guess for where other people can help. So Figshare has a new API, so it looks like they need some help updating the existing Java API for BioUno, so we'll be able to link to that. And then, sorry, I'm having a hard time deciphering this one, but there's a pro license of PBS server for testing a plugin, but it looks like they're intending to write a generic job submission and monitoring plugin for Jenkins. I see. So if people have experience with batch systems or DRMAA, there are a couple of links there.
Yeah, I'm also a little confused. Bruno, if you could define PBS and a couple things, that would be helpful.
So I know PBS is a job queuing system, and my guess would be Jenkins is sort of a web layer on top of that where that is being carried out. But yeah, if Bruno, if you could provide a little more detail in how other people can fill in there, that'd be great. Very nice.
And then I think the last project is actually you, Brian.
Yeah, so I put that in. This is a newer. It's a revival of an older project that I started about 3 years ago, where I built an R package to interface with GitHub APIs, and specifically providing mechanisms for scientific coders to leverage GitHub and to be able to source in scripts that they're storing within a GitHub repository and provide sort of permanent links to the specific commit that they're actually executing. And so there are a number of us at Sage who use this and includes those web URLs in provenance relationships such that you can start to see exactly how certain analyses that you're carrying out were built. So you can say that I ran this code on this piece of data and got this output. And so I'm going to be working to get this up on the Collaborate platform shortly and pushing towards getting the package accepted to CRAN hopefully this summer sometime. So and I think where others can help, I'll start adding issues over the coming weeks to see what is going to be necessary, in particular to get an acceptance to CRAN. So I'll start adding issues shortly.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's it for the project updates. Yay,
Yeah.
projects.
Yay, projects. So, new volunteers. Anybody wanting to get involved, feel free. Anybody who's interested in getting involved with any of the projects, feel free to jump into the Etherpad and express your interest there. And those who are looking for people, take a look at the new volunteers and what their interests are. And then I think the other community update is the next community call being March 10th.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's all the content we have. I think Aiden wanted to share one last thing before we end.
Awesome. Yeah. Aiden,
Yeah.
away.
So we've been talking a lot at 18F about these kinds of issues of other government agencies or people in universities or whatever saying, I don't know how to start using open source. I don't know how to tell my boss that this is okay to do, or my IT department or whatever. And so we've been brainstorming about ways to kind of help alleviate those fears and support people in those positions. So we're going to be starting a public Slack channel to talk about like open source at a sort of meta level. If you would like to be added to that, I at the bottom of our notes section, I made a set of bullets for just add your email there, or you can email it to me. Send me a direct email if you don't want to put your email in the Etherpad. But if you would like to join that, feel free to get in touch somehow or add your email, and we'll make sure to get you invited to that.
Great, very cool. I see Bruno just joined here. Bruno, do you want to take a quick minute to talk about BioUno since you were able to get on the call?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. So BioUno has been basically in the beginning built around Jenkins, and we also needed to build several Java APIs in order to use that with Jenkins. And the APIs can be used by other projects as well. Later, Ioannis from Novartis joined. He brought several ideas and built the most popular plugin in Jenkins that we have with over 1,000 installations, active choices for making it easier to parameterize jobs in Jenkins. And now we are working on metadata and also to submit jobs to grid engines like PBS, SG, Load Leveler, and others. And we are looking specifically at Grid Engine, but there are also other frameworks and libraries that provide similar things. 2 weeks ago, we presented BioUno in eResearch New Zealand, which is one of the biggest research conferences here. And we got some positive feedback. Figshare was there as well. They have a new OAuth API version 2. The old one, version 1, is still working, but we need to update the plugin in order to use the new features. I also met Rob Peter, I think he's one being mentioned here in the list of, what's your name? Right in the top friends of Mozilla Science. Rob Peters was there as well.
Rob is great. I like Rob.
Really great guy. And that's it. If you have experience with Java, Jenkins is similar to Travis, for whoever is not familiar with that, or if you just have some interest in learning more about job submission, grid engines, etc., please feel free to join.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bruno. Thanks for getting on. All right. Well, I think that's is that it, Abby?
Yeah, we were super fast today, and right before Etherpad decides to kick us out, so perfect.
It's good timing. Yeah, so I'd like to thank everybody for joining, especially our speakers from 18F and all the people who joined both on Google Hangout and live stream on YouTube. So the next call is March 10th, is that right?
Yeah, the next community call is March 10th, and the next project call is March 24th. They're slightly different.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Bye.